Welcome to Resilient Minds 365, where we discuss the resilient stories of entrepreneurs, professionals, and students with mental illnesses to encourage you to strive, thrive, and live in abundance. I'm your host, Cleoni Crawford. Welcome to Resilient Minds 365, where we discuss the resilient stories of entrepreneurs, professionals, and students with mental illnesses to encourage you to strive, thrive, and live in abundance. I'm your host, Cleoni Crawford. Well, guys, today we have a special guest with us. Today we have Phyllis Leavitt with us. Who is she? Well, she has a master's degree in psychology and counseling from Antioch University. She co-directed the Parents United Sexual Abuse Treatment Program in Santa Fe, New Mexico for 2 years, and then went into private practice full time. Phyllis has treated children, families, couples, and individual adults for 34 years and has worked extensively with abuse and dysfunctional family dynamics, their aftermath, and some of the most important elements for healing. She has 2 previous books, A Light in the Darkness and Into the Fire. Her latest book, America in Therapy, A New Approach to Hope and Healing for a Nation in Crisis, published by Morgan James Publishing, explores the roots of divisiveness and violence in America from a psychological point of view, with the goal of bringing the best of what heals relationships and restores us to safety into national conversation. Phyllis lives with her husband in Taos, New Mexico, and is now focusing on writing and speaking. So with that said, I now present to you Phyllis Leavitt. So Phyllis, how are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing great, and thank you so much for having me here with you.
Awesome, awesome. So Phyllis, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about your profession, how you got started, what you like about it, and the work that you do.
Yeah, well, how I got started is I think how a lot of people might get started in their profession, which is it had a personal relevance to me. I went to therapy myself when I was in my mid-30s, and I was at that time significantly depressed and had a lot of anxiety bordering on panic. I had 3 little children. I was in a very dysfunctional marriage. And I was just starting to remember a little bit about having been molested as a child. And so I was really like in a very, very difficult place. And I decided, as so many people do when they're really hurting, that I was open to getting help. And I went to see a therapist. And I really had no background in psychology. When I grew up, people weren't talking about psychology. They weren't talking about mental health. They weren't talking about child abuse. They weren't talking about functional and dysfunctional family dynamics. I just didn't, that world was not open at that time. And it was just beginning to become more common knowledge when I was in my 30s. And that gives you an idea of how old I am. and um, and I went to therapy and I went to one session and I was really convinced that I was the problem, that there was something just intrinsically wrong with me that I was hoping that the therapist could help me fix. I felt unlovable. I felt, that I had so much inside of me that I didn't feel like I was able to express. My greatest connection was the love that I had for my children, and that was very, very powerful for me. Um, so I immediately went, she asked me about my childhood, and I basically told her my childhood was fine. The problem is me. And and then I immediately went to the library and I took out books on psychology. And I'm a big reader, so I started reading about psychology, and all of a sudden, light bulb, like your childhood has everything to do with how you feel about yourself, the attractions you have, the coping mechanisms you develop, the role models for men and women, the role models for conflict resolution or not. Um, And it just, the whole world opened up for me about understanding where I came from, which I had not contemplated at all. And then over a period of a number of years, I went to a number of therapists, and I recovered a lot of memories of early childhood abuse. And I suddenly made sense to myself. I understood my depression. I understood my anxiety. I understood why I had chosen the husband that I had chosen. And I understood that there was a way forward. I understood that healing was possible. So that's sort of how I came to be a therapist. And then the books that I've written, the first two books were really about my healing journey and my ability through the work that I did to really get in touch with my most essential, untouched, innocent, self. And that I think we all have, and that we all have a right to access and to be in connection with through whatever help we are able to get from other people or through some other means. But for me, I had a lot of help from other people, and from my own, I think my own spirit came through and really connected with me. And it was just waiting there to have the layers of hurt be peeled back so that I could connect. And then my latest book, really just shortly, which you can see behind me, American Therapy, is bringing that healing that I understood and I was able to experience to a national conversation for healing the family of America, because our families are hurting on all levels, our individual families, our community families, our business families, our school families, our religious families, and our national and state and international families are all hurting from violence and divisiveness and abuse of so many people. And I really wanted to just peel the layers back for all of us for the sake of healing, not for the sake of blame, but for the sake of healing.
Okay, okay, it sounds great. So these books, where can people purchase your books?
They're all on all the major booksellers, Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And you can also go to my website, which is www.phyllisleavitt.com, and you can buy the books straight off of my website. Um, and I'm on all the social media. I post all the time different things that I think are really relevant for people today, and personal story, client story, observations of what's going on in America and around the world. And yeah, that's readily available. And I feel like we are in such a crisis in this country that my book actually goes live on Tuesday. That's the launch date, but it's available already for pre-order, so it can already be ordered. And I feel like there's no better time for my book, which really offers solutions on a very doable level. If we just understood that, at a time when our country is in such deep trouble and in so much crisis, and there's so much divisiveness and threats of violence. And I think we need all the help we can get more than ever.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Cool. Well, thank you very much for going into how you got started and your profession and so forth. It's definitely well needed in this time and season. So yeah, kudos to you for sure. So with that said, we are going to move into the mental health part of your interview. Uh,
Right,
my question is, what is your mental health diagnosis? I think you alluded to it when we were discussing it. And
right.
when were you diagnosed?
Well, I wasn't diagnosed. So,
Oh,
I think I wrote that to you. I
yes.
just know that I suffered from a lot of depression and anxiety, and I don't anymore, and I feel like it's possible, not that I'm not don't have moments of feeling down or anxious, but I feel like, I've done so much healing work in my life, and I have so many tools to help move me through difficult moments, that I wouldn't say that I have, that I suffer from that anymore. And I feel like that's really possible for many people. And that's not to say, if someone is suffering now from any form of mental unwellness or hurt, that you should be over it, because that's not the way it works. Sometimes there's a long healing process, or sometimes it's something that you're coping with for a long period of time.
Okay. So would you say that this was in your 30s when you first realized that you were suffering from depression?
Yeah, I mean, I was suffering from that all my life since I was a child, but I didn't know that because there was just no
Mm.
language for that. Nobody talked about how you felt and if you felt well or unwell, or if you were nervous, or, that was the word people used more than anxiety when I was a kid. But nobody talked about any of that. So I just didn't have any language to understand myself. And that's why I say, I just thought there was something wrong with me because I wasn't happy and I wasn't like my friends and I wasn't like other people.
Mhm.
Little did I know I probably was like a lot of them, but
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, so my next question to you is, so tell us a little bit more about your mental health story of resilience. What did you have to go through? Break it down for us.
resilience. I mean, I think a lot of things really, and I do feel like innately we do have resilience if we're allowed and we have the tools or the support from other people to tap in, or the role models from other people to tap into that resilience. I think human beings are incredibly resilient. Just look at all the things that so many people have somehow managed to survive. Um, but of course, my goal is that we do more than survive, that we really thrive, that we can be our full selves. So the things that helped me, first of all, therapy really helped me a lot. Having a safe person to cry with, to sometimes scream with, and to really peel back the layers of what had hurt me, that was just invaluable. I did a lot of therapy. And with different kinds of modalities, I did some hypnosis, I did guided visualization, I did a ton of inner child work. Um, and those were the psychodynamic therapy. Those were the main kind of things that I did in therapy. Um, but the other things that helped me outside of the therapeutic model were creativity. Like I found solace in being creative. I love to paint. I love to I always have had a garden. I love to watch things grow. I have house plants. I had pets. I spent a lot of time in nature. Nature was incredibly healing for me. Um, just my connection to the Mother Earth, and without people, and like I needed that as well. And then I began to sort out among the people that were my friends and the people that I related to, who were the people that I actually felt good with. Were there people in my life who were kind of repeating some of the dynamics that had already hurt me? People who didn't value me, or who had to be one up, or were kind of self-centered. And so I started to eliminate some of the people from my life who I felt reinforced my bad feelings about myself with. And I selected the people that I felt good with and that I felt that I was supportive and a true friend for. And that was a big one for me. Um, what else did I do? I meditated. I started meditating. I started connecting with myself on that level that was sort of outside of religion, but very much connected to spirit inside myself. Those were the main things that I think really came from resilience and fortified my resilience.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. So, what did you have to do to overcome or bounce back from your low points? List all the resources. You kind of listed a few minutes ago, but is there
Yeah.
anything else that you would like to add to that list?
Well, I forgot to add writing. That was like a really big one. That was like the biggest one. I kept a ton of journals, and I had a friend way back in the day who said she had learned this journaling technique, which was you just sort of write down a question or a statement. I'm feeling really down today, or please help me. I don't know how to get out of this depression or this anxiety, or I'm really upset because so and so said blah, blah, whatever it is that you is present for you, to write that down and then ask within yourself, your highest self, to give you an answer, and then just write whatever you hear. And it was sort of a, stream of consciousness writing technique that actually began to open doors for me. And I can't recommend that um, journal writing practice highly enough because it's really accessible to anyone. And just listen, whatever you hear, we all have an intuitive sense of what we need to heal. I really believe that we have that in us. And many of us have been trained not to listen, that somebody else knows better, or what we think is wrong, or we can't trust ourselves, or whatever it is that has shut that door to our own inner knowing. And fortunately for me, I found writing to be that doorway, and it was a really powerful one. And it's really where my books came from. But I kept tons of journals, and I listened and I listened and I listened, and I tried to act on what I heard.
Cool. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, listening to that inner voice is very important. Very important. So my next question to you is, what are three things you wish you had available when you were at your lowest point?
Yeah, I wish people had been talking about sexual abuse when I was younger, because I had absolutely no idea what had happened to me. I don't know if I would have related it until began to have some memories, but or at least have a conversation somewhere that I could read about, like study psychology when I was younger, study family dynamics, look and see what the dynamics were in my family growing up that weren't particularly functional or healthy, and understand that we are a product of dynamics that happen on all the levels around us. It's not just our family of origin, it's all the family systems we participate in that give us messages about ourselves. You're worthy or you're not worthy. You're beautiful or you're ugly. You're stupid or you're smart. All the messages that we are bombarded with from the people and the institutions around us on a daily basis. I wish I had understood how much they were impacting me.
Mhm.
Um, and I think people do know that a little bit more today, but I think there are lots of people who still have not been able to access that kind of information.
Okay, cool. So, what are some words of hope that you would give to our listeners? What would you tell to someone who's been in your shoes?
Absolutely, no one is the worst thing that's ever happened to them. And we tend to define ourselves by that, or the worst things we've ever done, because sometimes the worst things we've ever done come out of the worst things that have ever happened to us. And, when you're hurt, often you proliferate that hurt to the people around you, not necessarily intentionally, but because we just go on automatic pilot and repeat what we know, or hurt ourselves. And so I think that what I would really like to encourage people to understand is that inside every single person is an innocent, pure, essential human being. And that's who we are. And what happened to us is just the layers of conditioning that have been imposed on us, and they can be peeled back and we can heal. And I think I would also say, look around in your life and see who are the really safe people and who are not,
Yeah.
and really spend your time with the people who are safe, the people who actually love you, the people who see you, the people who value you, the people you care for, who care for you and you care for, obviously. Um, and stay with them, even if it's just one or two people rather than 10. But really spend your time with people who are healing just by their presence. And we can all be that for each other. The more we heal, the more we can be that healing person, that safe person, that compassionate person, that understanding person who values other people for each other.
Powerful words. Love it. So, now we are going to do a little switch in the interview. As
Okay.
you see, behind me to the right, yeah, to the right of me, there's a book that says The Music of My Life. And basically, that book is a book that I wrote about my journey with bipolar disorder and mental and music therapy. So, with that said, my question to you is, what type of music do you like?
Well, probably identify myself as a weird old hippie, but I really, really love Indian chanting music. I went to an ashram when I was way back in the day when that was kind of a thing in the United States. And I I learned meditation there, and I really fell in love with the chanting music, and I still listen to that to this day. But I also really, really like reggae. So,
Oh,
so there
cool.
you go.
That is cool. That's cool. Awesome. So if you were to think of a song that best describes your journey, what would it be and why?
Yeah, there's a really, really beautiful chant called Hallelujah, and it's sung by an artist named, I think her name is, I think how you say it is Snatam Kaur. And it's just an exquisitely beautiful hallelujah celebration, and it fills me with joy and life and connection to what really matters in the world. It's a really, really beautiful chant, and I would recommend everybody check it out. I think it's on, I think you can find it like on Spotify and Apple Music and stuff like that.
Cool. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so very much. So how can we stay in touch with you? What are your social media handles?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, and I have lots of interviews on YouTube. I have articles written on Substack, and I have articles and posts everywhere. And the best place to find me, though, is my website, which I said is www.phyllisleavitt.com. And you can just Google my name on any of those, any of the social media. My website is www.phyllisleavitt.com. And really at this time in our country where we're in so much crisis and so much pain and so much divisiveness, I just really want to encourage people to buy my book and get a new lens on how we can bring mental health recovery to our nation. Because a lot of what people suffer from, I know, bipolar disorder has a biochemical basis, and a lot of what people suffer from, though, is really environmental. They suffer from poverty and discrimination and lack of access to resources, or being marginalized or ostracized, or gender, discrimination, or sex identity gender uh, discrimination. And so a lot of what we suffer from is also societal. And so in my book, America in Therapy, I really talk about the healing that we need to do individually and collectively. So please check my book out, share it with your friends. I feel like our whole country is crying for a new lens on how to deal with what's going on and pull us back from the dangers that we face.
Perfect, perfect. Well, thank you very much for sharing. It's been a pleasure having you as a guest on our show to share your story and to talk about your books and to talk about, your expertise. It's been a true pleasure. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. It's been a great pleasure for me, and I so appreciate what you're doing and the questions you ask and your input. And thank you again.
Thank you. And to all you resilient minds out there, until next time, please subscribe to us on all our platforms and don't forget to rate the show and leave a review for us on Apple Podcasts. Also, join the community of resilient minds and sign up for our monthly newsletter at cleonicrawford.com. Be sure to grab a copy of my book, The Music of My Life, on all Amazon marketplaces to get to know me better. If you can think of one person that will receive value from today's show or connect with Phyllis's testimonial, please share it with them. Feel free to take a screenshot of this week's episode of the podcast and tag us on Instagram. You can tag myself at Only Cleoni or Resilient Minds 365, and today's guest at Phyllis _E_Leavitt on Instagram. And remember, mental health is not a death sentence. Despite your illness, you can strive, thrive, and live a life of abundance. Until next time, I'm Cleoni Crawford, and I'm signing off.